He didn't really do anything to me to suck me back in, but he made a show because we were involved in church and he was a church leader. He wasn't
Mm.
a pastor, but he was a church leader. So he had to confess what he'd done and he was like crying at that time, he was actually having other affairs.
It's funny how they can say one thing and it's almost like they live two completely separate lives.
I used to say
Um,
that. I used to, when I
okay.
was trying to figure things out, I used to tell our pastor he's living a double life.
So let's start at the beginning, Jenny. Tell us a little bit about your family, your home growing up.
Sure. Well, my parents did want to give, I have two brothers, and they wanted to give us the option of faith. So they
Oh,
took us to church from a young age for a number of years growing up. And then when we were in the teenage years, my parents gave us a choice whether we wanted to continue, and none of us did.
mm.
But then when I was 20, I had friends asking me to go to church all the time. And I was like, no, no, no. But finally I went. I started to go regularly. I made a profession of faith, but I didn't really understand. I understood intellectually, but I didn't, my heart wasn't really clear on the gospel.
So
Yeah.
tell us a little bit about what your parents taught you about marriage and how was their marriage?
Their marriage is good. They've been married 40 some odd years. They were high school sweethearts, and their marriage is good. I guess they taught me that couples work it out. Like whatever couples just stay together because there was no ever hint of any trouble, or I mean, not that they didn't have little bickers now and then, but it was just like a given thing that they were staying together. So
Okay.
I
So
guess they
once you're
taught me.
married, you're staying together, you're going to work it out, you're going to stick
Yeah.
together, you'll make it through thick and thin, that kind of message.
Yeah. So that kind
And
of stuck
you
with me.
so you had a really good example. People always wonder, was there any abuse in your home?
No, there was not.
Okay. All right. So
No.
this was a normal, loving home,
Yeah,
and the kids were treated well. Your mom and
very
dad
well.
treated each other well.
Yep,
Okay,
and
great.
they always supported us. In fact, I know old friends used to say that they looked to my family like they came from dysfunctional homes and they thought I had this wonderful, I mean, nothing's ever perfect, but they thought I had the model home life compared to their
Right.
lives. Yeah.
Right. And there is this myth that goes around saying, well, the kind of people who divorce are those from people from really horrible homes.
Right.
And you had a loving home, I had a loving home.
Yeah.
And we need to educate people more about why this happens.
Right.
So talk to me about meeting your husband to be
Hmm.
and what attracted you to him.
Hindsight is 2020, but
Of
anyway,
course, of course.
um, we met at church, and he had a similar personality to me, kind of quiet and really easy to talk to and seemed trustworthy. We met at church, so you can't go wrong if you meet someone at church, right?
Exactly, exactly. That's what we're always taught.
Yeah, and there were red flags though, like really early on, and I should have been like, get out of that.
Well, give
Like,
us an example because, not everybody sees things
yeah,
through the same lens that they do, 20 years later in
no,
hindsight when they're saying, oh, I should have seen that.
yeah, like poor money management skills.
Oh, right. Okay. Like,
Uh,
give us some example.
I would be paying for meals sometimes.
Okay. Okay.
Uh,
Because
and
and why was that?
I don't know if he didn't have the money or I don't know. Anyway,
Were
I was
you
taking
so were you just generous or did he say, I just don't have any money?
I can't remember,
Okay.
honestly.
Okay.
Yeah.
But you
I
got the message that you would have to kind of step up.
and I bailed him out of some financial things and he didn't end up fully paying me back before we got married. So, I mean, that was just me like, well, I can't not pay him back because then I'll lose this relationship and it's just not good.
Okay. Yeah,
I had
fair
I
enough.
had
You didn't
I
want
had
to
friends
hold his feet to the
go,
fire because you didn't want to, you were in love.
yeah, at least I thought it was. I probably was on some level.
Sure,
Yeah.
sure. Well, when we drop our standards that we would normally expect from someone else, hey, pay
Yeah.
me back. Yeah, I lent you this money.
Yeah.
It's a kind of a form of, if we're just afraid. um did you ever worry that you wouldn't find another boyfriend
Yes.
or?
Oh, yes. Even
Okay.
closer to the wedding, I can't even remember what issues we were having, but at one point I'm like, "Are we gonna make it through this?" And it's like, I gotta hold on because I'm not gonna find anyone else. I live
Okay.
so I
So
don't
what
even.
was behind that kind of insecurity? What made you think that? Because I think a lot of us do. I mean, a lot of us think, wow, everyone else is married, but I'm
Yeah.
not. Or there's all kinds of little things we tell ourselves.
Yeah, I was really insecure and
Okay.
just didn't have a lot of self-confidence back then, or self-respect, I should say, is I had some self-confidence, but I didn't have a lot of self-respect. And I yeah,
Okay. Were your parents worried about him at all?
yes.
Okay.
But they didn't tell me until we got divorced. My dad did not want me to marry him. Actually, my dad did send me an email at one point saying he had concerns because this guy wasn't very responsible, etc. And I just like, nah, I didn't really, I was kind of upset about it. But anyway, kind of pushed it under the rug. But he was right. Um, and my mom said, no, don't say anything. And anyway, she did tell me later, once we were divorced and everything, that my dad did not want me to marry him.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
So what advice do you have this is kind of an aside, but what advice do you have for parents who see their kids heading for sort of a
Uh,
disaster?
Yeah. That's a delicate situation because you don't want to ostracize your kids. But I guess, I mean, my dad did send me that email. So at least I had some, I can't say I wasn't
Right.
unaware completely. Um, I don't know because it's every family and situation's different, but I guess it wouldn't hurt to just, if you have concerns, to express them, because then at least if things go south, you can have peace of mind knowing you did say something.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Good. Yeah. I think you the nail on the head. It is a delicate situation,
And
and it's probably good for someone to say, wow, that's not very normal behavior. That's not very responsible behavior.
yeah,
I think a lot of us, weren't open to hearing concerns, and our parents, of course, knew that we were over 18 and we could make the
yeah,
decision we wanted to. By the way,
yeah.
how old were you when you got married?
I was 26.
26.
Yeah.
Okay. And then how many children do you have?
He had a child from another
Okay.
relationship. He was never married before me, but he
Okay.
did have a child. So I was a stepmom.
So you walked into a stepmom
I did it
situation.
was,
All
yeah,
right.
that was very challenging. But we're still in touch to this day, a little bit
Oh,
anyway.
well,
So
that's nice,
he respects
because a
me.
stepchild who will stay in touch
Yeah.
after a divorce, that says that you had something special in that relationship.
Right. So there was redeeming qualities even. You can always look at the bright side, I always say.
Well, yeah, no, I mean, you probably really brought a lot to that. Is it a son or a daughter?
It's a daughter, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, and
all
she has
right.
a child of her own now. We're in different provinces in Canada now, so we're not close, but there was a while she wanted me to get to know him, and we bonded pretty quickly, but then they moved and we couldn't keep in touch the way we
Sure,
had. Yeah.
sure. Well, that's lovely. That's really
Yeah.
lovely. I mean, you made a difference in someone's life. That's great.
Right.
So you marry him,
Mhm.
and then when do things start becoming troubling to you or worrisome to you?
First year, within the first year,
Okay. Okay,
he
what happened?
there were financial issues that he wasn't necessarily forthcoming about. So, and that was really upsetting because, I felt like I was lied to. I felt like a little bit of trust had been broken. And there was also one point when he became, snippy with me, like short
Hmm.
tone. And I called him on it. I said, or no, actually, he apologized. He actually apologized for it. And then 5 minutes later, he went back to it. And I said, but you just apologized. And then he got kind of annoyed with me for saying that.
So did you try to go for any kind of therapy or talk to friends, or what did you do in the face of his financial irresponsibility?
I don't think I shared that with anybody,
Okay.
actually. But because our marriage, I mean, it just it wasn't what all a marriage should be. And um I was basically very neglected in every way you can imagine. And so that I did share with some friends, and I don't know. Yeah, I guess they tried to understand, or but they weren't in that situation, so it's hard to completely understand if you're not in that situation.
Right, right. How long did your marriage last?
Almost 13 years.
13 years. So what did you tell yourself
That I was a
to
bad I said I must be a bad person because he's treating I'm not saying I was not perfect at all. I was not myself, and I felt like I basically just felt like a bad person because, if he was treating me badly, then I guess I deserved it. Or when I found out he cheated, many years later, I figure, well, I guess I deserved it somehow, which is very untrue and wrong, but that was where my mindset was. That's the only
Sure.
way I could reconcile it.
Right, because if this person loves me, they went to the altar saying they loved me.
Yeah.
Then if they aren't loving me and they aren't doing kind things, they're not investing in the marriage, they're not making the marriage safe and respectful and loving and kind,
Mhm.
and they're squandering family money. And, you haven't told us, what was he doing with his money?
He would sometimes buy musical instruments or speakers for, sound system, that kind of thing. Electronics.
And
Like it's just that money was tight, but I mean, it is for a lot of people. So
sure, sure. So the issue was more of he bought expensive things without us discussing it, or how
yeah,
would you put it?
yeah, that's perfect.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. It happens the first time, it happens the second time, happens the third time.
Mm.
What happens then with your thinking?
Oh, I was just really stressed, and
Mhm.
I would call him on things. I wasn't shy about speaking my mind. He was mad.
He was mad at you for saying something. Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah, my current husband says that I was a strong woman, and he couldn't handle a strong woman. I never felt strong, but that's what my current husband says.
Oh, that's lovely. He
Yeah,
sounds like he's a real gem.
he's amazing. He's the kind of man I always wanted.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
great. That's wonderful. What started making the marriage completely unravel toward the end? What were
Yeah.
the events that were eye-opening and kind of shocking to you?
Yeah. There were the it wasn't just one affair, there were several.
Okay.
And there may be more that I never found out about. I actually had to at one point I had to be my own private investigator, looking in old cell phone bills and things like that's how I started to put pieces together and get evidence.
Wow.
uh, but and then I just didn't feel safe in the home.
Tell me
I
about that.
we slept separately for many years, mostly because he was a snorer and I couldn't sleep. And I probably
Uh-huh.
just didn't feel at rest in the relationship, so no wonder I couldn't sleep in the same room.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
uh towards the end I was locking the door.
Oh, really?
I didn't feel safe.
Okay. Was there anything objective you could point to, or, what was it?
It was just very uncaring, very
Okay.
cold. Yeah.
A lot of people feel unsafe in the
Mhm.
marriage bed. I've had a lot of people tell me that
Wow.
their spouse was watching them, monitoring them in the middle of the night.
Wow.
Another person said this was a man, and he woke up in the middle of the night and found his wife with a baseball bat over his head. And
Wow.
another woman said, she would sleep, and her husband all night long would be watching her,
That's
and then
crazy.
he would accuse her of doing things in the middle of the night, and she says, I'm doing nothing but sleeping. Feelings of being ill at ease are pretty
Yes.
common in these kinds of situations.
Yeah. And I didn't feel myself. I just felt very icky, and I wasn't myself. Like my emotions had completely shut down at one right before I left. I remember writing in my journal that I felt emotionally dead.
Oh, wow. Wow.
And we did actually go to counseling at one point, like a professional counselor, and she could see the writing on the wall because he wasn't. It's not just that he had affairs; it's that he wasn't really. He was sorry for getting caught, but
Uh-huh, uh-huh,
I
yeah.
don't think. I don't think he
So
ever
you're
would have.
saying he would apologize, but it was sorry for getting caught, not
Yeah. Well.
genuine remorse at a heart level that he had done
Yeah.
something wrong and hurt his
Yeah.
wife.
He one time he did say that, like, towards the very end, he did say he felt like I got the like neither of us were having a good time, but he felt like I got the brunt of it. He did
Mhm.
actually admit that at one point.
Oh, wow, okay. So
And then
a little
yeah,
bit of empathy for you, a little bit of
yeah.
self-awareness.
And but yeah, what else was I saying? Oh yeah, that counselor we were seeing, she could just tell things weren't going well. And I went back to her after, like, on my own, and she was telling me basically like it's a very toxic relationship, and it was kind of a jolt to hear that because when you're in it you don't necessarily realize how bad it is.
Yeah, you think, "If it were toxic, I would know because I
Yeah,
don't live in it every day," and
yeah.
sometimes an outsider can see better. What was she specifically referring to?
The affairs for sure,
Okay.
and just the way, just the coldness, like the cold way he treated me.
Mhm.
Again, it's not like I was an angel to him, but
Sure.
yeah. And I remember one thing she said, and this might help someone listening, is that the best predictor of future behavior is past behavior.
Amen. That is so
So
true. Yep, yep,
that,
whatever they did in the past, they're likely to do in the future.
yeah,
Did he go through any big shows of repentance or
yes.
sadness or buying you
I-
flowers? What did he do to kind of
Well,
suck you into the relationship?
he didn't really do anything to me to suck me back in, but he made a show because we were involved in church and he was a church leader. He wasn't
Mhm,
a pastor, but he was a church leader. So he had to confess in front of he didn't confess. It was someone in the church.
mhm.
But he had to confess what he'd done and he was like crying. But at that time, he was actually having other affairs.
Oh, oh, wow.
I
Yeah,
didn't know that at the time.
yeah,
I only knew
yeah,
about the one. And
yeah.
people had even asked him, "Are there more affairs?" He said, "No."
Wow. It's funny how they can say one thing and it's almost like they live two completely separate lives.
I used to say
Um,
that. I used to when I
okay.
was trying to figure things out, I used to tell our pastor he's living a double life.
Yeah. A secret life, a
Yeah,
double life.
yeah,
Absolutely. And I think what you're saying is a lot of women's story.
yeah.
And now, so he wasn't actually, trying to pull you back in, wooing you over with flowers and jewelry
No,
and things like that.
no,
He
he was
just didn't want anyone else, and he wanted others to think highly of him. And so it was
yeah,
more this emotional show of tears and repentance and so on.
yeah. And he actually after that, he actually seemed very angry at me.
For having standards.
I guess, I don't know. It was very strange. And
Wow.
other people at church saw it. They could see his angry treatment of me.
Yeah, what did you make of that?
I just figure I don't know. I really don't know.
Just confusion.
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what was the kind of the last straw for you or heading up to the last straw?
Yeah. I woke up one day, ended up calling my parents and telling them everything that had happened. And I said, I have to leave. I have to leave right now. And I left that day. So,
Wow.
and it was just, again, like so much of that cold treatment that
Right.
I just had to, like, I got to
I
get
mean,
out.
how a lot of women say, how do I know this is it? How do
Yeah.
I know that I need to walk out the door now?
I guess I like the whole gut instinct thing.
Hmm.
Just the gut, the gut instinct doesn't, I know when you're a Christian, it's different, but it doesn't steer you wrong.
Yeah.
I
Right.
mean, that was my case. I just knew.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like you just realized, okay, the blinders are off.
Yep. And I didn't that day I didn't plan to leave that day. And the hilarious thing is, I had to put a big pot of baked beans in the slow cooker. He does not like He did not like baked beans. So he came home that night to me being gone and there being a big pot of baked beans. Kind of funny. So my
I
revenge
love it.
was food. No,
Yeah,
it
that's
wasn't meant.
funny.
I didn't plan to leave that day, but there he had all these baked beans that he doesn't like.
So you woke up in the morning, you weren't going to leave.
No, not that day. I knew I would be eventually.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. What was it about that day that made you say, done?
I don't know. I'm not even sure. I know it was when I was talking to my parents, it just came out of my mouth. I have to leave. I have to leave now. And I
Okay.
was out of the house in about 3 or 4 hours.
What was their response?
They were supportive. They were sad, but they were supportive
Okay. Yeah.
because they knew about that first affair. And when I had called, they to tell them, my dad said, were there more affairs? I said yes. So
Okay.
yeah,
How many affairs were there that you know of?
there were four.
Four.
Four of
Okay.
them I knew of.
Serial adulterers, man, they do not change.
No.
So how did you get out of there? Did you load up your car, your truck, take all
Um,
your personal, how did you decide what to take with you that day? Because nobody
yeah,
can put all their belongings in one
no.
vehicle.
I just my parents came. I don't drive actually. So my
Okay.
parents came to get me and I went to their house and I just took what I would need for, I don't know, clothes and of course makeup and things like that. But
Okay.
yeah, I didn't want any of the furniture.
Okay. Got
Yeah.
it. Got it. Now you've walked out the door,
Mhm.
and what did you do next?
I remember well, I went to my parents and I just remember I could breathe. I
Oh,
felt
wow.
like I could breathe. And and that night my brother came over and he had a Boston Terrier pug and that pug must have known something was up. He came and sat up on my lap for a while.
Oh,
And yeah, so I stayed at my parents for probably 8 months
oh, wow.
after that.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Did you ever have any second thoughts during that 8 months? Because a lot of us do.
Yeah. I don't think so. But when you leave something so abnormal, it feels weird to be around so many normal people. I remember thinking that.
It feels abnormal in what way?
Well, I guess like the situation I was in was so abnormal that then like everyone around me appears so normal. So then that in itself feels abnormal, if that makes
Okay. Okay. So
yeah.
was it their kindness or
Yeah,
the
just
fact that you didn't have to walk on eggshells,
just
or what
everything.
was it?
It was just everything. Like there was peace and uh, yeah, I don't know. I guess maybe I was starting to feel like myself. I could be myself again.
Oh,
Or I could start on that road because it was a
so
long road.
how had you had to not be yourself in this marriage?
Well, I felt like I had to hide from everyone that my marriage was so bad.
And now you were finally with people you could tell the
Be
truth
right.
with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they believed you.
Oh, they did. Yep. No one doubted.
Awesome. Awesome. You were so fortunate. How long did it take you? Was it before that day when you drove off, your parents came and got you,
Mhm.
or after that you really accepted that the marriage was completely over?
Oh, I don't know. I don't really remember, to be honest.
Okay.
I know the recovery aspect took a long, long time.
Okay. Talk to
It
us about
did.
recovery. What were the
Yeah.
biggest challenges and how did you meet them?
Well, one thing I did do, maybe I shouldn't admit it, but I looked him up online a lot because I
Uh-huh.
wanted to see, well, is he normal now? And so I would see pictures like, well, he looks kind of normal. Maybe it was me. Like I would have this kind of struggle back and forth.
I
Yeah.
think a lot of people do look up their ex and see how they're doing and sort of hoping that they're sad and miserable.
Yeah. Or
And
there's just,
oftentimes they find these happy pictures and they go, oh
yeah,
no.
I know. Or at least some sign of abnormality, and there was none.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I had a hard
What
time.
advice do you have for other women who are tempted to look up their ex?
Uh, it's advice I didn't take myself.
Of course, it's so easy to dish it out.
I know. Um, I mean, you can try to find accountability partners. You
To
can,
stop you from doing this.
yeah, you can
Yeah.
block. If you're on Facebook, you can block them. Even if they're not your friends, you can still block them. I've done that.
Okay.
Um,
Did you have to block any of his family members or
I-
friends?
oh yeah, yeah, I
Okay.
did.
Yeah.
Yeah, and still have them.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah, I had a hard time. I didn't want to stay in touch with my in-laws, my former in-laws, because it
Oh,
was just,
really?
yeah, couldn't do
Why
it.
was that?
It was just, I don't know. It was just too hard. It was too much of a reminder, too painful, I guess.
Did they see what was going on? Did you feel that they felt any empathy for you at any point?
Yeah, they did.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
It
And
was
they
just
had
too
actually, they told me at one point that they did.
okay.
And they even sent a Christmas card to my parents' house that year, and I didn't want to read it. So my mom read it, and then I just threw it in the garbage.
Okay. Yeah, I think
It's just,
sometimes it is really too hard to hang, keep a relationship with the in-laws, even if they
yeah,
are empathetic and
yeah.
sympathetic. And the other thing I always find is that eventually, in many cases, not all cases, but in
Mhm.
many cases, blood is thicker than water, and
Yeah,
sometimes they will eventually turn on you, even though at one point they expressed that you were the spouse who had kept your vows and had really tried to hold the marriage together.
right, right. Yeah,
So
one person cannot hold a marriage together. I did learn that.
yes, yes. Talk to us more about that. Did you
Yeah,
believe that they could for a while and then
I
came to a
did.
really okay?
I did actually. A different counselor actually said that if the marriage was going to be saved, it would be up to me, which is
Oh
terrible.
no.
That was terrible advice, but yes. So I guess in a way, I kind of maybe believe that on some level.
Yeah. Well, there is no marriage really if you've got
No,
someone cheating on you that much and being cold and hostile to you.
yeah,
So,
that's
I
true.
mean, in one sense, it would be up to you to keep, the little marriage document intact, but the marriage was already
Yeah,
shot from what
it was
you're
dead.
saying. It
Yeah,
was already gone.
it was.
He wasn't investing. It was nothing on his
I don't even
side.
know why he. And I would actually ask him, it's like, do you want to be married? Do you want to know? I didn't want an open marriage because that's just weird. But
Yeah.
I actually asked him at one point, do you want an open marriage? No
Uh-huh.
response. I didn't get very much. It was like talking to a brick wall.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Got it. So, did you ever feel that people looked down at you because you were divorced, that you had been a loser, and did you ever wonder if you'd ever be happy again?
I did. I never got that response from anyone.
Okay.
There were a couple people in the church that struggled with divorce, divorce is a sin, they would say.
Yeah.
But they eventually came around. They eventually came around and were supportive.
Good.
But yeah,
Good. That's wonderful. Is that
yeah.
because of some of the leaders in the church talked to them, or they figured it out, or do you
I
know?
think they figured it out. I think they
Okay.
finally figured it out. But
Were
what
you
was your
telling people that he was cheating on you? I mean, how long did it take for you to be open
I did
about
I
that?
try it's kind of weird because I felt like I had to protect him. So
Oh,
I
yeah.
tried to limit who I told and how much I told. I mean, they already knew about that he had cheated once, so maybe they could already put two and two together.
Yeah, I think that a lot of women, and not all women, but a lot of women and men too,
Mhm.
who have been betrayed badly, we don't say anything about it because what if God did a miracle? So we don't
Yes.
want to um,
Yeah.
talk about it, because if we talk about it and we say something and God does do a miracle and that person completely changes, now
Mhm.
we're going to have to explain to friends, well, I know I told you that he was cheating, but and I call that falling on your sword, where we don't tell anybody about what they do, or if we do tell them something, we really minimize it, or we make it so vague they can't figure it out. And
Yeah.
falling on your sword, I think, is a serious issue for Christian women in particular, and Christian men
Mhm.
who are being
Mhm.
betrayed, because don't we end up suffering alone because no one
Yeah.
else knows. We won't tell
Right.
anyone else.
Yeah, that's really hard.
Now, did your parents know all along, or did you kind of keep everything except for the first affair from
Well,
them?
they knew about that because he had to make that confession at church, and their neighbor actually was at our church that day and said something to them. So,
Oh, wow. Okay. Okay.
um, but then I didn't tell them about the other stuff until later.
Okay. Yeah.
Actually, I did tell my mom at one point that I was doing investigating because things were weird again.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay. And how did she respond?
I don't remember.
Okay. All right.
Unfortunately, I don't
Um,
remember.
did you mentioned when we talked earlier that
Mhm.
you feel that forgiveness is important.
It
How did you go through that process of forgiveness, and what does forgiveness mean to you?
that was that was a long process too. That was as long as because I guess that I was going to say that was as long as the healing aspect, but you really start to heal when you forgive, I think.
Okay. And
Um,
forget now, for some people, they think that forgiveness means forgive and forget and give this person a second, 10th,
yeah, it
100th,
does.
200th chance and
Yeah,
reconcile with them. How do
yeah.
you respond to that?
Um, Forgiveness and reconciliation aren't the same. You
Okay.
can forgive someone and be safe by staying apart.
Yeah. For when you forgave, would you
Mhm.
say it was more of a sense of I'm just not going to get revenge? You go your way, I go my way. I don't need to be friends with you anymore. At the same time, I'm not going to get revenge on you. I'm not going to go out
Yeah,
and smear your reputation to everyone.
right. And yeah, I think it was a gradual thing. I don't remember a specific moment of like thinking that way. It was
Mhm.
just a gradual issue.
Letting go.
Yeah,
Yeah. Okay.
yeah.
And how did you know you had finally forgiven?
Well, even now I can say that because I can talk about this without feeling upset about it. It seems
Okay.
like it happened. It almost feels like it happened to someone else.
Yes. When you have found a safe group of friends that you can share with, maybe through therapy, maybe it's something formal, but maybe it's informal, like an online Facebook group or something, like my Life Saving Divorce group.
Mhm.
When you have told that story a million times,
Mhm.
eventually the the pain goes away. Now, how many years would you
Oh.
say that the pain and the trauma kind of dissipated and you felt like you were telling someone else's story?
Um, it hasn't been all that long, really,
Okay.
like a few years, I would say.
A
Because
few years.
even when I met my current husband, there was still a few issues that had to be worked out, but he was amazing and patient and everything, and he understood.
He
So
sounds like a real gem.
he is.
Now, let's talk about that. A lot of people tell me I don't ever want to do this again. And in fact, in there, I've got one study that says that's the majority of Christian women. They don't ever want to, they are confident they don't ever want to marry again. So tell me how you and your new husband
Hmm.
met, and were there any of these concerns that went through your mind? Like, I screwed up the first time, maybe I'll screw up the second time.
Yeah. So we met through Christian Cafe.
Okay.
We met online.
Online dating. Okay.
We were a long distance relationship, which was actually really, really good because it provided a lot of safety um and he was just a different caliber of man than anyone I had met before. I could tell that
Wow.
when within the first day that we were chatting, there was something different about him. He was an actual gentleman.
Uh,
And so yeah.
so give me an
Um
example. What does gentlemanliness look like?
um it's an actual um interest, like when someone's actually interested in you and is asking questions about you and they remember things about you and they respect you and they respect what you do.
Mm-hmm.
And they flirt with you, but in a not in a creepy way, in a really cool way.
Ah, that's
Yeah,
sweet.
yeah.
No, I think what you just brought up is something I hear from other women. They'll
Mhm.
do online dating and they'll go out, they'll talk to this guy, and they will have expressed something that happened at work or something that happened there to their child, and he'll never ask again. Like he doesn't, it's like it's not important.
Right.
You're just one more woman he's talking to online, and he can't even keep the story straight. Okay.
He was the first man I actually dated. And that's what I
Oh,
wanted because of all the trauma, I didn't want to be dating a bunch of people. I did talk to other men
okay.
before meeting him, but I didn't actually date anyone before I met him.
When you talk to women about doing online dating, are there some things you want them to be careful of or watch for?
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. Um, you should always well, take it slow. Don't be in a rush. And meet each other's family even by internet. That's how we met our families at first,
Oh,
just
wow.
thing.
Okay.
And like do some sleuthing, look them up online. He was easy to find online, so I found out about him online before he had told. I kind of discovered him on my own, and then I felt like I was being deceitful, so I told him that I found,
Uh-huh.
found him. um and just don't be afraid to ask questions.
Yeah.
And a real man will not be offended by any question you ask. That
Oh, I
was
love that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you ever ask him anything he was unwilling to answer?
Nope.
Okay. All
Nope.
right. Um, did you have any worries about him up front that eventually got resolved?
Yeah, I did. Initially, I was kind of wondering, is he really a man of faith? And, so I did have some questions, but they all dissipated, especially
Okay.
when we first met. Like, there was a clear connection there. So,
Okay.
yeah.
It's interesting. What I tell women to do is to take all the little worries
Mhm.
and and put them in a corner of the room, and don't move forward with the relationship, at least not, to engagement or marriage or anything,
Okay.
until every single one of those little worries that's sitting there in the corner of your room
Yeah,
gets an answer.
that's good.
And in the meantime, you can enjoy doing the online dating and so forth, but
Mhm.
really make sure that you've got that list of worries or concerns written down,
Right.
because they're worth examining
Definitely.
thoroughly and getting good answers for. Sometimes we get our answers by asking directly, and
Mm.
sometimes we get our answers just by being in an online relationship for a while, and we realize, okay, here's the answer to it without even asking.
Yeah.
What other tips do you have on dating online?
Fairly, like for us, I think it was a couple weeks before we
Okay.
talked on the phone.
Okay.
I actually ran scared from him 3 times in the first month.
Oh, wow. Okay. Okay.
Very timid in the beginning.
And what does run scared look like for you?
Uh, Blocking him on Facebook.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And saying I'm not going to be continuing this relationship anymore.
Okay. By the way, I think it's perfectly okay to do everything you did. One of the things we lose in a bad marriage is our voice and our veto and our ability to say, no way, I'm not moving forward with this. And to do that and to introduce the conflict
Right.
into the situation. And now we find out, how does he deal with conflict?
Mm.
How do the two of you deal with conflict? So what happened next after you did that?
Um, well, every time he welcomed me back. And after the third time, he said, "You can keep running if you want. I will be here."
Oh my gosh, what an amazing man.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so great.
Yeah. So,
I too, when I was dating, so I remarried also, but I actually canceled our second date. It was like, no, no, I don't like what I see here.
yeah.
And I really loved, he said, that's fine. We'll do whatever you want to, but talk to me about it. What are you seeing here? What are you worried about?
Yeah.
And I was like, an hour later or 2 hours later, I was like, I really like how this guy
Mm.
wasn't afraid
Yeah.
to talk through issues. He wasn't love bombing me. He wasn't saying, "Oh, you're so wonderful. I have to have you back. I'm so sorry." He wanted to talk through the issues. He wanted to understand my fears and what I had seen and how I was interpreting it, what would make me feel safe. And it was amazing. It is great to see people who are healthy enough to talk through conflict. Now, some people you have conflict with, you talk it through and you go, they're still not safe. But it sounds
Yeah.
like you felt your
Yes.
man was safe, and I know that I felt the same way. Okay, then what happened?
Then he asked me to go steady. And so
Okay.
we started, and then after that, I didn't run it after that. I mean, a couple times I felt like it because the
Okay.
anxiety was sky high, but I didn't run because I had made a commitment. And
Okay.
I couldn't help myself. There was something different about him.
Did
So,
you talk to him about your anxiety all through this period?
oh yes, yep. He knew all about it. He was very
Okay.
patient. Mm,
Okay. That's lovely. That's
yeah.
lovely.
And
So
then
now we've got about 10 minutes before
okay.
the end of this. I want you to tell me a little about your new marriage,
Yes.
and then just any other tips, anything that we
Right.
haven't talked about. And then I'm going to give you a chance to talk about your book.
Okay, excellent. So yeah, we got married last June 2022, 2 years from the day that we first met
Oh,
online.
wow. So you took it nice and slow.
Did actually, it's funny because I went from like running to the first time we met in November, like 5 months after we met. Sorry, we met in person 5 months after we met online. And
Okay.
once I met him in person, I'm like, yep, he's the one. I know it. Let's get married now. But
Uh-huh.
he had to like um calm me down a little bit.
Okay.
So
So he put on the brakes, which
yeah, uh,
which is a good
and
sign, I think.
really good. Um, so we went at a slower pace, and looking back, he was right. So like I know he was right now.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, it was perfect. And yeah, the marriage is really good. We laugh all the time. We pray together. We go to church. He's an assistant pastor, so I really like supporting him. And
Nice.
it's just a really good friendship.
Oh, that's
And he's the
wonderful.
best friend I've ever had, honestly.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's fabulous. I'm
yeah,
so happy for the two of you.
yeah.
Now, any other tips? And then if not, tell us about the book you've written.
Yeah, just know that when I talk about how far I've come, I mean, that should give the people watching hope that there is hope after divorce. It's not the end. In fact, it could be a new beginning.
That's wonderful. And how is your relationship with the Lord now?
It's good. I mean, I got saved 4 years ago today.
Oh, wow.
And so
Happy birthday.
yeah, thank you. And I'm happy to be in a really good church, and it just makes a difference when you really understand the gospel, because when you're in church and you don't, it's kind of confusing.
Yeah.
Because you're not sure if you're actually saved. I had doubts for 20. So in addition to the marriage struggles, I wasn't sure of my salvation all those years either. So
Okay. Okay.
so
All
God
right.
brought me out of both of those things, the doubts
Oh,
and
that's wonderful.
yeah.
Okay. Tell us about your book. And I understand you're also doing a course.
Yeah, I have a book, Divorce Recovery Handbook. It's not as big as yours. Yours looks very thorough. Mine is more like a handbook. It's under 50 pages, and it just highlights things that divorced people will encounter, or just to help you feel hope and not alone, and strategies that can help you cope.
Nice.
And then I started a course on my website for a boundary course, healthier boundaries post-divorce, how boundaries can help you heal. Because
Okay.
and I can teach that because I lived it.
Yes. Okay. So tell us how people can find your book and
Yep.
how they can find you and your course.
Um, yep, my website is jennyealexander.com. And there's actually links to my book there. There's link to the course there as well. So uh,
Spell Jenny for us.
yeah, good idea. Jenny.
And then
Um,
E, like the letter E,
yep, Alexander.
Alexander
Yep, alexander.com.
.com.
Yep,
Okay.
you
Even
can
though
find
you're
it.
Canadian, you're using a .com. Okay.
That's
Perfect.
right. Yeah, yeah.
Okay. We have a
Yeah.
lot of Canadians who watch our videos. So
Oh, okay. There
just
you go.
say howdy to all of them. Okay,
Yes.
well, thank you so much. And I appreciate your time. Thank you
Yeah,
for
no,
telling your story, and God bless you.
God bless you.
If you benefited from this recording, you will find support and clarity in my book, The Life-Saving Divorce, available in paperback or Kindle on Amazon. You can also follow me, Gretchen Baskerville, online at lifesavingdivorce.com or on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, or Instagram. You can sign up for my email list at lifesavingdivorce.com. Women and men of faith may request to join my private online Facebook group, Life Saving Divorce Private Group. For more on life-saving divorces, please subscribe and click the link to the next recording.